Hello, everybody. This is Colleen Kennedy. I'm a volunteer with the Oregon section of ASME. I've made this video to help folks learn some techniques on developing new ideas for the professional section events. So I get asked sometimes about ideas. How do we come up with new ideas? So I wanted to put together some of the techniques that I use. You can choose to try these out yourself, but it might lead you in some new ways of finding ideas in your community. You have to be able to answer this question first before we go any farther. Ask yourself, what interests you? I can't answer that for you. You have to really focus your efforts on those things you think will be interesting to those around you, but it really has to interest you first to be able to go down the road to try to recruit a speaker and create a technical presentation or possibly host an in-person event in the future. So for the nature of this experiment and our training, we'll pick one thing. For me, the experiment I was going through was to try to create an event about the subject of wind energy. So again, ask yourself what that one thing is, and then we can learn these techniques to move forward. Now comes the journey. You're going to have to first prepare yourself for disappointment. Not every speaker you contact will be interested or even contact you back. So here we go. Get ready for number one. After contacting them by email or other methods, you hear nothing back. Okay, so typically that means they're not interested. Move on. The second one, they're very polite and actually answer you back for various reasons. We're not available due to our schedule, meow, meow, meow. We're not going to be able to offer a speaker. That's cool. At least you know. Move on. Third, sometimes they contact you and they're confused. Are you ASME headquarters? Who are you? What kind of presentation are you talking about? We don't have a salesman ready. And so the confusion and sometimes not being clear on what the event is about, a technical presentation for an engineering society. So sometimes events kind of fall apart even in email contact once you get it. These are common things that have happened to me. For every event that appears for the Oregon section where we get a really good speaker and presentation, I may get half a dozen that just don't happen. But that's okay. I know it's sort of the nature of the contact that I've agreed to take part in, that can happen. So sometimes another one is I never really make contact with the speaker. I only get a hold of the handlers, and this can be for sometimes with also famous people or people in sort of a high profile position. And only one of those actually turned into a speaker. So if you go back and forth with not the real technical presenter, but a handler, it may or may not happen, but just keep an eye out for that. So now we start the journey of discovery together. You can have an internet search, most common one. As I mentioned, wind energy is what I was looking for. But when I do that search, I'm going to couch it like this. It's Oregon wind energy. I'm doing it for things in my area. And I'm not looking for a list of companies. I'm looking for news. So for your search, put your state or city, your subject, and then the word news. So you're going to be agreeing to become educated a bit on this subject to try to get a speaker. Another one I was looking for was autonomous vehicles. Oregon autonomous vehicles news. I think you see the idea. But even in our own community, other professional sections of different engineering societies have a lot of the same big companies that are made available. Those companies often have departments of people made available for speaking events. Try something a little different, maybe with lesser known companies, emerging companies, new startups that have some technical aspect that's also in the news. As I work, I keep the notes in a Word document. So for each research article, I copy the URL and I copy some of the text from their website and maybe a picture to remind myself. This is just research material I'm keeping track of as I go through so that I don't have to try to remember later how to go back to another company that I heard about or another agency. When you read these news stories, we're looking for a name. If it says, Lisa Smith, head of engineering development, such and such, or the name mechanical section lead, this is what we're looking for, because once you have that name, that might be the very person that we're trying to track down later. And as an ASME local section, you have a membership roster. You don't have the email for that certain person, but you can log into your roster and simply look, are they already an ASME member? Because that's cool. By contacting them, it's also that connection now to their society. Now, they might not be. Later, if it turns out to be a very good presentation, buy them a membership as a speaker gift too. So here's one of my Colleen secrets, and that's the contact us page at companies' general websites. I hear a lot of folks, oh, it's hard to call a company. You can't get past the receptionist. You don't know who to talk to. Don't call up people. And you don't really want to do kind of a specific email unless that person is also someone that has an email on the contact us page too. I use the general ones, info@companysuchandsuch.com. And I have a message that I send them for that. It's a script we'll go through, and you can develop your own. The goal here is to get attention so that that contact sends it to the engineering department or a manager and says we've had a request for a speaker. Now, you're not going to be sending these out to 100 companies or 50 companies. I do it one at a time. You're looking for a balance. You could have a really interesting topic, but after talking to the actual speaker, realize that they have it in a very boring and slow style. It could be a great charismatic speaker about a very common item. So who would want to come to an event about a very common topic not knowing it's a charismatic speaker? You're going to have to find some aspects of it that's of interest. So you could have wind energy, but you could have it be about a specific site being built off the Oregon coast for being shipped off to Hawaii. Have it be a topic that's of interest to your local community because of a local city, a factory, a building, a person, a company's invention. So, Colleen's secret number 2, I listen to the local news. I have a little notebook or I'll jot something down, and it can be that really bad morning news that's overly happy, but they have a reporter off at a wind energy site all of a sudden, and now you have a name of the head engineer they're talking to. So sometimes I have these news things on, and maybe it's only once a week I hear something. What? That local paper plant is back up and operating? Really? They've been closed for 30 years, I ask myself. How did that happen? If it interests you, your members will probably be interested too. Now, about a year or so ago when we had to do virtual events and stay home, this kind of stopped. But before then, for the last several years, we go to public events, a bridge opening, some other student event for displays on their student projects, even at a college. Things that are happening that are available for you to go. That's where you're going to go and meet people and talk to them. As a volunteer recruiting for events, you will see and hear things around you in a new way because you'll be looking at rooms for a venue. Wait a minute, this restaurant has a room that can seat 40 people back here. I wonder how much they charge. You'll meet someone and see, is the work they do or the contact they have with a certain company going to be interesting later? You're going to be kind of on the lookout for these things. So make that contact easy. Make a card. Now, I'm not advocating any specific company. Buy them wherever you want. I happen to use Vistaprint because it's very low cost. You can do as you like. Have a generic email set up. Again, use any kind of service you like. We have one that's oregon.asme@gmail.com. That way, as we have new volunteers take over year after year, that can be handed off, and it's always the email that we use and can give out on a card. Have those cards ready when you're out at that bridge event, or if you happen to be at a farmer's market and they have some student demonstration, or you meet people out in these different communities. They have to be able to find out what you're doing. We use the ASME community page. We also post the events we're hosting on LinkedIn. So have somewhere they can see sort of the history of what's going on with your local section. Consider setting up a YouTube channel. We did. It was free. Videos like this that I'm making are with PowerPoint and an audio recorder. They're not that hard. But as we talk about doing professional events with speakers and using virtual platforms, there might be other aspects you can use those videos for too. So, ideas are a journey. Interestingly enough, we've got a lot of the speakers, because the work they do has a mandate that they have to speak to the public. For example, it would be a public utility or an agency like the Port of Portland, Portland State University, George Fox, the University of Oregon. There's state and federal agencies, NASA, the Jet Propulsion Lab, NIST, the National Institute of Standards. These have an aspect of their work that makes a requirement that periodically they speak to the public. So when these requests come, they can very often be more likely to come back with a yes on that topic. So when you use that name, ASME, in the request, I am a volunteer with the Oregon section of ASME. Obviously, I always tell them I'm a volunteer. The name has respect out there, so make sure to use it. We're an engineering professional society. We host technical events. We host events that try to promote engineering for students. We're working in the public realm. So you can definitely use that to describe yourself and what your professional section does. So the journey we're looking for is learning about what's happening around you. I'm using the example of wind energy, but you have that one topic yourself that you're thinking about now. Learning about the companies that are out there, companies in the news, a state agency, a utility that might be involved. So now we're kind of creating that pool to draw from. You're going to be researching the news yourself. And sometimes that can be with different journals, like we have the Portland Business Journal or the Oregonian newspaper, or like I mentioned, the TV news channels. There's going to be many different sources you can start to search from. But we also have asme.org. When I search wind energy, Oregon, at asme.org, I could see if they had an article. Maybe it was 2 years ago. Maybe a little bit longer. Maybe it was research being done by a school or college or had a professor's name. And because that's already been published, that group or that person now may be more likely to speak to that local section where ASME has already published stories about them. So we've found maybe that company name or that agency or that person's name, or we've done the lookup for contact us on a company's website or an email, info@thecompanyname.com. So what do you write? I've created a script. You don't have to use it. Create your own. But I wanted to show what we do. I am a local volunteer with ASME, the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. Tell them what it means. Our members would be interested to hear a presentation on X. So don't say wind energy. You want to say the new Vigor energy facility being built off Newport, Oregon, or the specific thing it is you're looking for. I have a blank there, but you're going to fill it with that specific title of what you're trying to find out about. The thing you learned about in the news. Please contact me. If a technical presentation, not just a normal presentation, we want something technical, could be given from an engineer, not a salesperson, not a public affairs person. These are clues of exactly what we're looking for. And again, the subject line isn't just wind energy, working on the research and development or maybe the configuration and the launch of this new thing, or they're there to be working on facilitating the opening of it. Be specific about the work it is. It's on the gearbox. It's on the invention of the new power relay station. Use the specific words there instead of keeping it blank. It's helping them know who it is in their organization they're trying to direct it to. You only know that because you've done the research that I mentioned before on the different websites. So we want to be formal. We're a professional society. I always thank them a little bit formally like this and tell them who I am, Colleen Kennedy, ASME Oregon section. Now we can obviously make even clearer later that we're local volunteers with this national organization, but for the nature of this email, that's it. That's all you need. The goal is to get that contact back, an email back. Dear Colleen, yes, I forward this to our engineering department and I'm looking for an answer from the manager this week. We want that first email back, something simple. And now we're going to move on to the next step of the journey because it doesn't stop here. That first email, we're not offering a set of dates. I'm looking for a speaker for the first week of November. Nope. Unless there's some specific reason that you need that. This first email doesn't even offer that. We're trying to see when they are ready. Be clear, you are not from ASME headquarters office or from a technical committee or a standards setting committee, your local professional section. Use the words that you picked out from your research about that specific topic and the objective. That's showing that you've done the work and you know what it is you want from them. The goal of the first email is to write a second email. That's where we'll start to go into those specific topics and the back and forth that happens before a date and a real speaker is set up. So the second email now gets down to the nitty-gritty. Tell them our virtual events are through Zoom or whatever the platform is that you're hosting. We want to make it clear that we're doing all the work. They just have to be prepared with a presentation, PowerPoint, actual models to have on hand, that they have a camera. We will do everything else. Oregon ASME will make all the technical arrangements and send the invites to our members. We're not looking for them to try to do this. And sometimes it seems like you shouldn't have to say it. Say it. It will help keep this moving in the right direction. Tell them when you host them. For us, we like this Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday type of dates, 6 to 8 p.m. Tell them what you want. For us, we're typically looking for an hour or an hour and a half. If it's in person, they tend to take a little longer. And let them know that we'll have time afterwards where everyone will ask questions. That way they kind of get a sense of how the events are run, where they get to present all at once. But here's the key. That second email is we're trying to set up an introduction meeting. Because we happen to be using Zoom, we've also found out quickly having an introduction meeting between our volunteer team and that speaker can really set the stage to get everything going, like picking the exact topic, the exact date, etc. Now, in that email, I'm here saying we're happy to set up that introduction meeting. What do we want back? We want a day and time for that meeting. Be ready if someone has to do it during the day, though I tend to ask if it's okay to do it after 4 p.m., and that tends to work out okay. So I'll write there, we're happy to set up an introduction meeting any day this week or next week after 4 p.m. And then they can write back. Here's the name of the person. Please send them the Zoom invite for Tuesday next week at 4:30. Great. Now we're ready to go. So we want to know a day and a time of who we'll send that to. The first introduction meeting. They may or may not know what ASME is. Tell them. So you have to kind of be ready. ASME is the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, a national professional engineering society. Actually, we're in many countries around the world and have over 150 local professional sections all over. We host technical events. Be ready to tell them very simply what it is. Give some examples of events that you've held or other activities so that they learn a little bit about ASME if they're not familiar. Again, be clear, you're not on a code setting committee, you're not doing pressure vessel inspection, unless you happen to do that, but really you're trying to explain what your section does. Also, to understand the expectation, we're looking for a technical presentation of about 1 hour, but our members can vary. We've got college-age students, younger engineers, mid-level, senior engineers, retirees. We cover a big spectrum, and you can't really get too technical on some of this, but we're not looking for a PhD thesis defense. So consider we'll also have people on that are really kind of also from the general public. So make believe you're talking to a group of engineers who is curious and interested, and that's typically about the level we're looking for of technical content. But that introduction meeting is having them find out who you are, and it gives them a chance to talk too. So you have to figure out, how confident are they in speaking? Will this be the first time they've ever had to do a technical presentation through Zoom or another virtual platform? It might be. Do you have to plan other practice meetings or possibly offer an outline of topics to discuss? Again, you've done the research about that facility, and they might be so close to the topic that it's hard to say 1 hour, what would I do? An outline writes itself. Give us an overview of your agency and what your goals are. Explain to us how this project got started, where it is today, how did it get launched, or the topic, and then give us some future outlook into the topic. It's not any harder than that, but you might have to be ready to help them create an outline to help ease the stress of prepare a presentation. So that first introduction meeting, you have to understand, how would they feel about being recorded? They may want to do a recording form to allow ASME to prepare that so that you can show it as a video. And also to discuss possible dates of events. I found that you want to send the invite to the membership at least 2 weeks before the event date, with a reminder about 1 week before for folks that haven't signed up yet. So at the very least, 1 month before the date, you should set it with the speaker. If you're going to be speaking on June 1st, you should set that with them by May 1st, so they have a full month to get ready. And again, you might have to do a couple practice events for them to understand how to share the screen, how to play a video, how to stop sharing when the time comes. And on your side, who will do what when the event begins? Who does the introductions? Who describes the biography of the speaker? Who helps coordinate the questions as they come through at the end? We've actually found that 3 people is best. It sounds like a lot, but we have one person running the technical side, doing the recording, one person keeping track of the questions in the chat so they can lead that part, and the other person is letting folks in from the waiting room and helping populate the chat with some starter questions to show people how that works, and then to give them a virtual certificate to thank them for their presentation at the end. So we all share these roles. And it's good to kind of practice those with your own volunteers too, so you'll all know what you'll be doing. I'd like to thank you for attending, and hopefully we'll be able to create new material